movie opens essentially in the third act after Chris Hemsworth has basically been shot and he is doing very bad, and that's how the film opens. So was it always going to open like that, or did you have, was that always the opener?
No, that was not. That was something we found in the editing room. The film, originally, the script opened with the rescue. It opened with the scene with Rake in the room with the kidnappers and that opening fight that you see in the apartment. And it was cross-cut, kind of you do that, and then you go back to real time where he's driving with the kids. So it was an interesting playing with time. And then when we laid that out, we just found that it was a little bit it didn't work as well as a linear story. It's following the logic, the linear story with a little bit of a tease as to where we're going, because we played it. And just to be perfectly honest, if it was a theatrical release and you had literally a captive audience, we probably would have started the movie with the kid's story. We wouldn't have used that original bit with Hemsworth on the bridge. But because it's Netflix and you've got Chris Hemsworth on the poster, and if you don't give them Chris Hemsworth in the first 5-10 minutes, they're going to switch the channel. They're going to change it and watch something else. So we're like, how do we got to keep them? We got to keep people invested and watching. And so then we came up with the idea to let's do a little bit of show people where we're going, and then hopefully they'll come along for the ride and see how we got there.
Sure. I've been waiting to talk to you about this since I saw the film, which is I want to talk about the ending specifically. So I've watched the film twice, and the beginning of the film, we have Chris Hemsworth jumping in the water. He's underwater. He's basically meditating, if you will, thinking about his life, and it shows that his character under the water. Cut to the end of the film, we have the kid in the water, submerged, and he's thinking. He comes up, and we look, and in the background behind him, you can see the silhouette of what looks like Chris Hemsworth. So I'm of the opinion there's one of three answers here. One, Chris Hemsworth is his character survived and is teaching the kid his techniques. Two, the kid has learned everything to know about the person who saved his life and is imagining Chris Hemsworth's character sitting there and teaching him. He learned that Chris used to do the breathing, if you will. And possibility three, it's someone who looks like Chris Hemsworth's character who is now his bodyguard. Would you care to comment on these three things?
Sure. I love that. I mean, but what's so great about it is those are three valid, opinions. And what would hopefully happen is people will be afterwards discussing that, and you get to say like which one you feel is right for you. Because what we did first, I'll give you kind of where and why we landed where we did, and then I'll give you the original movie ending. So we tested. We had a version of the movie, and we tested it a lot, and it was not surprising that a lot of people wanted the character to live. Some people wanted to die. It was ambiguous. People were like, they were torn. It was almost down the middle. And we're like, we want to appeal to as many people as possible without compromising the integrity of the story. And so we're like, I think a pretty good compromise is to make an ambiguous ending to where if people on one hand feel like the story is complete and is a story of redemption through sacrifice, then for them, it'll be, option either 2 or 3. It'll be where the kid is like imagining that. And then now you go like, yes, I'm satisfied. If you feel like you love Tyler Rake and you love Chris Hemsworth and you want a sequel and you're like, there's no way, you can't kill him. That's that's Tyler Rake standing there looking at you. So we kind of purposefully did not pull focus to, the character standing there. And in truth, again, that was a thing of testing and because we shot multiple endings. We shot, a lot of different ways to pull this off, because here's your spoiler alert for those who hear it. the original script, and this was my idea, is that Rake does not live. His story was complete because he found a reason to something to keep him alive, and that his journey was complete when he gained redemption through sacrifice. Like, he made the choice he was okay with, like, he come to terms with his past and the choice that he made in the present to save this kid, and if that meant him dying, so be it. And that was his journey in my mind. And then a very astute thing by the Netflix, the head of Netflix, president of Netflix, Scott Stubert, his point was well taken, and it's fantastic, and I'll remember this forever. Is that you got to remember the difference between an intellectually satisfying ending and an emotionally satisfying ending. So we struggled with that concept of, is it more emotionally satisfying that Rake lives or that Rake dies? And truthfully, a lot of people, the vote was, it's more emotionally satisfying that he lives, because it's like, now the kid represented gave him something to live for, and now he's living for that. So basically, what you see in the movie is a compromise. Like, we because a lot of us who were in the original camp didn't want him to survive. A lot in the new camp did want him to. We tested it, and literally down the middle. I mean, I think the stats are somewhere, I don't remember the exact percentage, but it's almost right down the middle of people who wanted to live versus die. So we're like, hey, we're going to give you the best of both worlds. We're going to have this ambiguous ending where you can choose your own adventure.
No, I listen, I totally think the ending is fantastic, because I love the ambiguous nature of it, and I paused it last night when I rewatched it. I'm like, is that Hemsworth standing there trying to make it out, but you shot it out of, you didn't focus enough to be able to tell.
Yeah. And that's great. See, that's something that I, as a filmmaker, appreciate, so long but that's for the right reasons. Because if it was you going back and you were frustrated and like, what the, and you were frustrated by that, then you'd be like, oh, that's not good. But if you it's like, what? And you're looking more, and it's like a mystery that you're trying to solve, but in a positive way that you're intrigued by, then I think it's great. Then it serves its purpose, and ambiguity works in that scenario.
I love the scene where, and I don't remember character names, and I'm sorry, where the near the end, where the drug dealer, the other drug dealer is taking a piss, and she comes in and basically takes him out. And I love the way the shell runs on the ground. Can you sort of talk about crafting that scene and having that shell do what it does?
Yeah, that was actually one of the first scenes that we shot. It was the first scene we shot with those two actors. And so it was kind of a feeling out process of how we wanted, knowing it was going to be the last time we see, Golshift's character and Priyanshu. It was a kind of an interesting feeling out process, because you had to do a lot of road mapping of where they've come from. Like, a lot of movie happens before this, but this is the first time these two people have interacted, the first time these characters are on camera. So we had long discussions about all that stuff. But then what I wanted to do was, always think, it from like James Bond, and there's a lot of great kind of bathroom scenes. And what I wanted to have kind of this homage to that, but also to the shell kind of represents kind of the random nature of life and death, and this world that's one moment like you're up here, the next minute you're like you're dead on the bathroom floor with your privates in your hands. It's like a weird thing. And so you never know which way like the shell is going to bounce, so that so it's just kind of a little visual metaphor we threw in there. And that particular shell, we didn't do it like 100 times to try to get it to do the perfect thing. That was a digitally placed shell in there after the fact. We knew we wanted something like that to happen, so we left a place for it, but to make it behave so we didn't have to do it so much, we saved that for the visual effects team.
When you think back on, by the way, how many shooting days did you have for this thing?
We had, I believe, principal photography was 58 days, actually.
That's not a lot of time for how much action you have.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a bit of both. For movies, that I'm have worked on in the past, it's not much time at all. But for a first time movie, and it's a lot. A lot of movies get shot in half the time. I've worked on movies that get shot in a third of that time. We kind of always were able to make our day and stay on schedule. And I think it was a great job by the AD department and the producing side of things to keep everything running smoothly. And we didn't run over. We got it done, and we had to go back to pick up some stuff, but it wasn't nothing was left unshot of what we planned to shoot.
There's a lot of action set pieces in this, and I'm just curious, how much are you and Chris like sort of plotting out all these action set pieces before stepping on set on day one, and how much of what we see on screen is being figured out during the shoot?
Yeah, I'd say because there's so much action and the schedule is pretty tight for this, most of what we did, we knew what we were doing, and we had if not exactly what we wanted, a very good blueprint of what we needed to do. For example, that with the 12-minute one shot, we went on. I mean, we'd started the planning process of that probably 3-4 months ahead of time. We went on, I think, 7 different tech scouts, which normally, like in the process, you get 1, maybe 2. We went on 7 different times where we took the entire crew and walked through the sequence, start to finish. It took us 6-8 hours, but it was a full day of like, this is what we're doing. Just so everybody knew what we were doing. We bring the stunt team. They would, go through all the action. So everybody was so when we're doing this, we can't, nobody can, craft service can't be set up over there because our camera's going to be here. And it was very well laid out. And then you get there on the day and, things that for whatever reason you rehearsed it in a hotel, conference room because the location wasn't ready because it was, being painted or whatnot. And so you mocked up the space, but it wasn't exactly right. Now the hallway is much more narrow than we thought it was. So now you have to change. Now it can't be this big spinning move that we had planned. Now you got to change it. So there was a lot of that fitting the choreography and the design of the action to work better in the space. But we did know we weren't making things up as we got there and be like, hey, this looks cool. What should we do here? We definitely had a very good idea of what we were doing. But the part of that, to me, the reason that we put so much time in prep is it gives you the confidence to show up on a set and look for something better. Because the worst case scenario is you shoot exactly what you had planned and great, and you go home and you got something. But if you can get there and you have that in your back pocket, for me at least, it gives me the freedom to look around and say, hey, what can I add? What can I make better? Knowing that I have this, this plan in my back pocket. And so a lot of that happened in the tenement fight, the first time that Rake lets loose and when he shoves the guy's head onto a rake, spoiler alert. Things like that came out of spontaneity in the moment. Like we had an ending that we wanted and we shot it, and it just, you get back and looking through dailies and you're like, it doesn't quite have the same impact that I want it to have. And then you got to do some horse trading. You're like, well, we can take a day away from this sequence to give you another day to really get what you wanted there. And you're like, is it worth it? You're like, yes, I'll do it, because it's the first time we see him do this fight. You make changes and compromises somewhere else and go, all right, I need an extra day here to make it work. And it's that's just filmmaking. You're constantly making compromises and changes and trying to make it all work to the best of your ability.